everyone knows I love my science and space segments. Love my history segments.
Big nerd. Yeah.
Love my space and science sections. I feel like talking about the present and just earthly politics is sort of my least favourite of the three: past, present, and future. So, okay, today it's been in the news cycle today that some discoveries of a possible habitable, well, certainly habitable, but habitated exoplanet. So a planet found outside of our solar system, which may harbour life. Now, you have to be careful when you do these sorts of things because there's so many fedora tippers. If you're not very careful with what you say, people will jump on it. So it's not 100% proven. So let's start there.
Has anyone named it yet?
I don't want to get carried away. Yeah, it's called K218b.
I've got something catchier.
Yeah?
New Albion.
New Albion. Oh, I like it.
New Albion, and we can all escape there.
Or perhaps just Waterworld, because they think maybe, again, even this isn't proven, but maybe it's an ocean world where the whole surface is covered in water.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, did you ever see?
We can make it work.
Did you ever see the Kevin Costner 90s movie Waterworld?
No, but it does remind me of the world they visit in Interstellar, which is entirely made up of water and has waves crashing on it. And I think the gravity is so heavy there that it causes a time, like some kind of time distortion for how long they're on there compared to when they get back to their ship.
Time dilation. Yeah,
dilation. That's the word.
I've only seen Interstellar once, and I really liked it. I'd quite like to rewatch.
I've only watched it the once as well.
Yeah. Okay, so this discovery was found by the James Webb Space Telescope. And anyone that follows this podcast closely will know that I love the James Webb Space Telescope. In fact, I've written and made content about it a few times before. There's an article back in 2022. I called it the best thing ever, and I'm referring to JWST there. And that was shortly after it launched from Earth. It goes to the next one. I wrote another thing about the Edge of Forever. I think that's among my better articles, actually, where again I'm talking about James Webb. And then I made with Josh a couple of pieces of content about about James Webb. Two different ones, his contemplations number 83 and number 150. So you'd have to go over to the website, the lotuseaters.com website for that content. It is behind the paywall still, I believe, right?
Yes, it is. And if you've not subbed yet, what are you doing? Bo's going to cry if you don't subscribe.
Josh will cry.
No, Josh won't. Josh will find you. He's a bruiser, our Josh.
So it's been in the news cycle. It's all over the place. Scientists find strongest evidence yet of life on distant planet is the BBC. Sky News goes with it. What have we got? Reuters. We've got a whole number of them. The Telegraph, the Mail, the Sun, the New York Times, Independent, a whole bunch of... So just to make the point that it's in the news cycle at the moment, that this is what's going on. So this isn't new, this planet. We've known about it since 2015. The Kepler Space Telescope found it in 2015. Just to say, we didn't know, even in the early 2000s, we'd never seen any exoplanets, i.e. planets outside our solar system. But over the years, because of space telescopes and other things, we now have been able to prove that there's over 5,000, maybe 6,000 exoplanets. In other words, not only are there other planets around other stars, but they're quite common. They're really quite common, it seems. Whether they can hold life, whether they can host any sort of life is something else, but there you go. So this one we've known for a while, and in fact, when James Webb was brand new up there in starting to operate in 2023, they had a look at this sort of straight away, and it was a very, very interesting one. At that point already, some scientists were saying there was sort of a 60, 65, 70% chance it might hold life. We'll talk about why they think that in a moment. But now, the news today is that those odds have gone up to something like 99% or 99.7%. So I want to go through why some scientists are saying that, and go through some of the counter arguments why it's not 100% or why it would be foolish to say it's 100% or anything like that. Go through some of the arguments where people say, come on, wait, calm down a bit, pump the brakes a bit on this. Let's be realistic and just go through what it is and all the discussion points around it. So, okay. We know what we can say for sure about it is that it's about 124 light years away, which is obviously a really long way. But in the scheme of things, in the scheme of the cosmos, I mean, even the scheme of the galaxy, it's not all that far away. Something like 700 trillion miles or 1.14 quadrillion kilometers. Anyway, it's far enough away to say that if there was any sort of blooming of life there, it couldn't be connected to Earth. Because if they find life, even microbial life on, say, Mars, or even on like, Enceladus or Europa or something, you could make the argument that the transpermia argument that it came from Earth in some way, somehow, in the early bombardment phase. That anyway, it's far enough away to say if it is shown
this
that
is
there's
life
there.
independent of Earth,
completely independent, but so far away that we can't ever get there. Well, maybe not ever. Let's never say never. If we can...
Stuck on this planet with these people still. Forever.
If we can make craft that go close to the speed of light, maybe one day...
Elon, get on.
Can get there, yeah. Dear Uncle Elon. Yeah. Make it happen.
Forget Mars. That's far too close.
So, things we can say that we know about it is that it orbits a red dwarf star, so a lot smaller, a lot cooler than our sun, but it's a lot closer to it. They think that there's probably liquid water on. There's certainly water vapor in the atmosphere. 100% water vapor in the atmosphere. It's in the habitable zone, or the Goldilocks zone, as some people call it. So, not too close, not too far away. One thing people have said, oh no, it can't have life on it, even sort of microbial or simple life like algae or phytoplankton, because red dwarf stars are actually, in terms of radiation, are much more violent than our stars, and they would strip away any sort of atmosphere on a planet that's close to them. Well, that just isn't the case, because it definitely has, this planet K2-18b definitely has got an atmosphere. In fact, a thick atmosphere, like definitely. Some people are saying that these solar flares or solar activity that would strip away any atmosphere from a planet, nearby planet, actually, from most red dwarfs, probably only shoot out of the poles of the star. And so if there's a planet sort of on the plane of the ecliptic, you'll probably be safe from it. Just telling you the arguments here.
Okay.
I think, in fact, it's fair to say at this point, isn't it, that we are still really in the infancy of our understanding of the cosmos.
Yeah.
I think that's fair to say.
Yeah.
So nearly everything I say here, and nearly everything scientists say, there are caveats, or there are counter-arguments to say, well, no, that's not a firm conclusion. So it's all still sort of, well, more than speculation, but there's some things you can say for sure, and some things that are just still up for debate. Okay, it's in the constellation of Leo. Let's see what other we know from spectroscopy, which is the spectrum of the light coming from it. So when it transits its star, i.e., from our point of view, when it passes between us and its star, it's transiting its star, just like we have the transit of Venus. When Venus passes in front of the sun, from our point of view, that's the transit of Venus. So same thing with this. When this planet transits its star, the James Webb Space Telescope, with a couple of different instruments on it, MIRI is one of them, I think in the infrared, they can see the light from the star skips through its atmosphere and then hits the instruments on James Webb, 124 light years away. And the instruments are so fantastically sensitive that they can then split out that light, that spectrum, and tell what it's made up of. What an incredible thing, right?
Bloody hell.
Spectroscopy. Amazing. And so they can say for sure, that it's got lots of CO2 and lots of methane. Methane's usually a fingerprint for life, because otherwise it would dissipate. So if it has to keep being renewed, suggesting that there's some process, might not be life, but some process creating methane.
Well, I mean, at the Blue Lagoon in Iceland, you get lots of methane because of the hot springs and everything.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. So there's some process going on there.
Lots and lots of CO2.
So it's a smelly planet.
Which is good. Yeah, it may well be. Very little carbon monoxide, which is poisonous to most life. Its atmosphere is thick and it's got hydrogen in it. No oxygen, or hardly any oxygen. So there's probably not photosynthesis going on, which suggests it's either a gas giant or gas planet or an ocean world. Probably not sort of terrestrial, rocky with plants. It's probably not, photosynthesis going on. So it's still there. But having said all of that, you can make the argument that there may just be completely different chemistry going on there. It may be that all these things that to us point to life or suggest life, it's just not the case there. That is an argument to be made. Yeah, there's just a whole different set of chemistry is happening there. But a couple of the key things that suggest that there's life is that it detected two particular chemicals called DMS, dimethanol sulfide, and DMDS, dimethanol disulfide.
I was hoping you were going to say DMT. And we could send Joe Rogan there to scope it out for us.
The atmosphere is 99% DMT. No.
Hell of a way to go.
And now, so on Earth, those chemicals are only really generated by life, and a particular type of life, largely sort of algae and phytoplankton, marine phytoplankton.
So if it's an ocean planet, I would expect that if there is life there, this is all pointing towards some kind of potentially primitive marine life.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So the counter argument is, well, just because that's the case on Earth, it doesn't necessarily mean that the oceans on K2-18b are filled with phytoplankton. Because we know, for example, they have found trace elements of those chemicals on sort of asteroids that are certainly lifeless. We know for a fact that it is possible in lab conditions to create those chemicals. They've done it since the 1970s without creating actual life. So make of that what you will. But on this planet, those chemicals are in a massive abundance, something like 10 parts per million, which sounds like a tiny amount, but that's thousands of times higher than on the Earth. So again, make of that what you will. It doesn't say it's 100% there's life on this planet, that there's marine phytoplankton on this planet, but it does suggest that it's fairly likely. As I say, some of the people that have got a vested interest because it's their research saying it's like 99.7% true. So anyway, when I hear these things, see these things in the news cycle, my first thing is to think, well, this may well be just mainstream media hyperbole. May just be, grabbing for clicks and sensationalist headlines. So I go to a few of my go-to people on YouTube. So I go to my Dr. Becky's, I go to my John Michael Gaudier's, I go to Astrum, Alex McColgan at Astrum, Anton Petrov, love Anton Petrov, there he is. Hello, wonderful people. I go to, and these are like, just because they've got a YouTube channel doesn't mean they're not legit scientists, because they are. So I go to these people to check what they think, because I'm no scientist, right? My undergrad is history and my postgrad is politics. So I go to these people. And this planet came up before, like, as I say, we've known about its existence since like 2015. We know it's been certainly interesting since 2023. And about a year ago, 11 months ago, it was in the news at that point, and all these people made content about it. And they were quite sceptical about it. People like Anton Petrov were quite sceptical about it, saying, look, it's interesting, and it could be that there's life there, but let's not get carried away. It could well not be. And they make all sorts of decent arguments, saying the data isn't clear, and another team used the same data and came to a different conclusion. And as I say, these particular chemicals don't necessarily mean it's an ocean of phytoplankton, and on and on. But with these new revelations on the new data, same team from Cambridge, I believe it is, saying no, it's much more likely now than we thought. And the first person I saw to make a video on it today was John Michael Gaudier, and he's quite upbeat about it. He's saying this could be it. This could be. It will take maybe another year or two for the picture to become sort of entirely clear, for the vast majority of scientists to accept that it's, to all intents and purposes, 100% or 99.999% likely. It'll still take a while before they can say something like that. But nonetheless, it's looking kind of pretty good if you're hoping for that to be the case. I don't think we can ever really say, or ever in any sort of near future scenario, that it's 100%. I think we will need to go to Europa or Enceladus and actually find real creatures before we can say. But even then, people will probably argue that it's possible that that life came from Earth. I mean, I've written about Europa before. It's promised. I've even made a direct appeal to Elon before, haven't I? Please build a probe and go to Enceladus and Europa, please.
That's one of maybe half a dozen appeals to Elon that you've made.
Yeah.
One of these days, he'll pick up your calls.
I also want to be ship's poet on the first Mars shot, don't I, as well?
Well, of course. I mean, that only makes sense, doesn't it?
I'm the obvious choice, Elon. Come on, let's do this. Old Gil needs this. Yeah, and I've also...
When somebody cut old Bo a break.
Yeah. So I've written about Europa and I've made content as well. Was it the next one? Yeah, I did a bit a while ago, just talking about possibly going to Europa or Enceladus. So, okay, I suppose the last real talking point to say is that if it does turn out that this planet has got life, even if it's only sort of primitive, simplistic life, like algae, that will sort of change the game in terms of our view of the galaxy or the whole universe, really. We will be able to say that at least primitive life is probably quite common, because the building blocks of life, the actual atoms that you need for life, the universe is filled with them, right? It's just a case of how they're put together. But if we find something analogous to algae on this planet, then we can say that probably simple life is quite common. Now, that doesn't mean that complex life or even sort of technological civilizations are common. It still looks like they are extremely rare. Well, it's unique as far as we know at the moment. At the moment, yeah. Because we look out into the galaxy and beyond and find no evidence of, any sort of radio transmissions.
There's no hot blue aliens for Captain Kirk to get off with.
Right, yeah.
Not yet.
Yeah. Let's not mention the Tic Tac incident here, but nonetheless, there's no sort of firm slam dunk evidence. Certainly, our galaxy isn't filled with civilizations beaming things around and building Dyson spheres and all that sort of
Death
thing.
Stars.
So yeah, but I think a fair few scientists say this, and I go along with it. I would suspect that the universe is not filled, but it's relatively common, simple life. Because it's like, so red dwarf stars are the most common type of star. Something like 70+% of all stars, at least in our galaxy, are red dwarfs. And something like 80% of those have planets in the habitable zone. So we're talking about billions and billions of stars. And even if some of them are able to, even a small percentage of those can support something like phytoplankton, then it will be really common, effectively. So we'll see, watch this space, if and when more data comes out or more research is done to say something with a bit more certitude that there is life, albeit primitive, on this planet. I'll keep you up to date. So, okay, there's that. I hope you enjoyed that segment.
Well, thank you very much. And don't forget to keep us up to date on what's going on with the columns under the pyramids.
All right, yeah, okay.
As well. I'm still very interested to find out what we've been keeping down there and what they've been keeping from us.
If you would like to watch the full uncut version that is also uncensored, head on over to lotuseaters.com to find out more.